Hey, what's up, everyone? For today's painting, I am going with two sets of colors. The first set of colors, where we get started right off the bat, is just like three colors. It's ivory black, titanium white, and just a little bit of phthalo blue to get this first set of colors. I'm going to be using the ivory black right off the bat to get the general outline. Now, when I do this outline, I am just going really rough. I'm not really worried about being perfectly accurate. I just want to get things in roughly the right spot so that when I start adding color, when I start getting this thing toned, what I like to do is kind of tone the panel or tone the piece of paper. I'm using paper today. This is Clairefontaine paper with some gesso on top. But what I like to do is just do a quick outline, get things kind of started, then start toning and drawing with the block-in method with these very straightforward colors. These three colors is all I'm using. And what I end up doing is using just two piles of paint, basically. I'm using a darker color for the darks, and I squint. Make sure to squint your eyes down so you're almost blind, and you'll be able to simplify down the reference image into two separate tones. You'll have a lighter tone and a darker tone, and just fill it in. Don't worry about being accurate, but just fill in your overall composition as close as you can with these two colors. That's how I start this one. And as I go, I start to refine this down very gradually. I use the block-in method, the shape-based drawing block-in method, where I go with the big shapes first, then I start drawing some medium shapes. But once I get the medium shapes, the general shape of the eye wells, the general shape of the shadow on the right side of the nose, the mouth, the cheek on the right side, all those shadows, all those lights, everything is just down to the medium details. That is when I start having some fun with some really intense color. And what I end up doing is I shift the colors from these really subtle grayish, bluish greens, mostly bluish, grayish blue with a touch of green. And I go with some really intense purples and blues. So once I get this thing to a roughed in area, that's when I start to use some very intense color to get the fine details. This is where I decide to just work on the eyes mainly. For this one, I don't want to get the mouth and the nose too detailed, but I start to work on the eyes with this really intense set of purples and blues. I think the most intense color you're going to see at the end is a really strong bluish purple. And it really turns out nice, really subtle. It's not quite as big of a shift as some of my other work, but I like this one because it turns out really subtle. Now, this will be over in its entirety. It's a 2.5 hour painting video. It will be over on Patreon in about a week or so, maybe a little less, kind of depends when I get to it. But every week I try to put a new video on there, a new demonstration, a new tutorial, a new art download. I'm over 50 tutorials and downloads, over 50 for sure as far as tutorials go and demonstrations, but I'm constantly updating this. So if you're seeing this years after this video has been created, there's probably hundreds on there now. But go check it out. Go check out my Patreon account. You'll see a lot of cool stuff there. Some other background stuff as far as what I'm doing here. The colors I'm using from bottom to top, those piles of paint on the top of my palette, from bottom to top is ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, ivory black, transparent oxide red, alizarin claret, cadmium red, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow light, and titanium white. And then I have some linseed oil, and then I have my medium, which is 4 parts odorless mineral spirits and 2 parts stained oil. That's my usual colors as of right now. I like to try out some different things, but you're not going to need all these colors for this particular video. If you want to go over to my Patreon account, in a week I'll have this uploaded so you can download the image and do your own version and see how it goes. But it'll have a full voiceover so you can watch me paint, watch me talk through the whole thing, all that good stuff. What else we got here? So yeah, this took 2.5 hours. I decided to call this one, what did I decide to call this? I decided to call this one Wistful. That's right. I had to think about it for a second there. Wistful. I wanted something that was kind of dramatic sounding. It's, the definition, it kind of depends on where you go on the internet for the definition, but one of the definitions is musingly sad. And I thought that was interesting, to be sad, but in a musingly way. So wistful. I don't know. It sounded good. She looks kind of sad towards the end of this. Even the reference image, she looks kind of sad. She looks like she's contemplating. Let me know what you would call this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Tell me what you would call this painting. after you've seen it, after you've seen the end of it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd like to hear any comment, honestly. Feel free to, I'll obviously like, subscribe, all that good stuff so you can keep in touch. But that is really the rundown of this painting. I think it turns out great. It's a fun little painting. No stress involved because I'm just using some paper with some gesso on it. So it's just going to end up going into a stack of other paper oil paintings I have that I may or may not release at some point. But I love doing these because it's just low pressure, just get to kind of goof around a little bit and see what happens with the colors. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think what I'll do at this point is I'll just go ahead, put some music on so you can watch the full process for this painting called Wistful.